How many balloons would it take to lift a house? It's a question posed in one of my favorite movies, and while reality kind of outweighs the fantasy, it's worth a fanciful look. The animators are on record saying that the house featured in the film is about 1,600 square feet and estimates of weighing about 100,000 pounds. That does not include the concrete foundation since it floats off of it anyway, nor does it include furnishings inside the house, so let's assume it's empty for now. Helium is just about 7 times lighter than air and can lift about 0.07 of a pound per cubic foot. By that logic, lifting that 100,000-pound house would take nearly 1.5 million cubic feet of helium. The balloons used in the movie look to be about 3 feet in diameter, so about 14 cubic feet of helium, assuming they're perfectly round. That means you would ultimately need about 100,000 balloons to lift that house, or one for about every pound. Well, that was easy, but let's keep going. Your average latex balloon is only about 1 foot wide, so you'd need 90 times more balloons than that original figure, and it doesn't account for the weight of the balloons themselves, including the string. That house will only stop going up once the density of the outside air reaches the density inside the balloon. That's usually several thousand feet up, so don't forget the oxygen tanks. You should also get a blank check for this little experiment of yours. All of that helium would set you back well over a cool $500,000 at current non-government market rates, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to the nearly $5 million or so for those balloons. I know that kind of bursts the balloon on a fun fantasy scenario, but there are ways you can float to the sky without engines or a heat source. Cluster ballooning involves tethering a bunch of helium balloons to a one-person rig. Much like bungee jumping, it's a risky hobby if you don't do the math. In fact, one man dubbed Lawn Chair Larry took to the skies in 1982. His planned 100-foot journey quickly made it to 16,000 feet. He dropped the pellet gun he was shooting balloons down with for stability, eventually getting tangled up in power lines and rescued by Long Beach PD. Today, the chair resides in the National Air and Space Museum, ballast, water jugs and all, presumably to convince you to buy a plane ticket instead. For this week's Moment of Science, I'm Dan Smith.